Welcome to season 2 of Where Passion Meets Purpose. I'm your host, Jen Mentasana. Each week, I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers who share their raw, real stories of perseverance, resilience, and building a life and business with impact. We talk about everything from entrepreneurship and family to purpose and living fully. My goal is to inspire you to start that dream, push through the hard seasons, and wake up every single day ready to live the life you were born to live with passion and purpose. Welcome back, everyone, to Where Passion Meets Purpose. I'm your host, Jen Mentasana, and as you can see, we are back in the studio today. I love being in the studio. I love being able to interview people in person. It just is that opportunity, like we're sitting in my living room having a conversation, and you guys get to be a fly on the wall. So thank you all for being here. I have another amazing guest today. Victoria Gustafson is here, and she is a heart and purpose coach for women. She has a coaching business. She's also a women's heart health advocate, and she has a background in media sales, which I just found out, which is so cool because we have so much similarity, and we could probably dive into that conversation for a while too. But I really wanted to have Victoria here because she had an incredible life-changing experience when she had a cardiac arrest. And what I didn't realize was that a cardiac arrest and a heart attack are two very different things. And so I really wanted to have her on because we're all getting to that age where we need to pay attention to our health more than ever. And women's heart health is so important. I don't think we focus enough on that. I have met so many women just in the last few years that have had cardiac arrest or heart health issues. And I just think this is such an important conversation. So I wanted to have Victoria on, and I am so grateful for you being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for being open to having me here and being able to share my story.
Yes, it's so important that we're having this conversation today. We first met, which is ironic because we have your son and my stepdaughter are good friends from childhood, but we had never met before. And you came to the Thrive South Bay event at the California Surf Club in October, and that's when we made the connection. Yep. And Olivia was there and put two together and said, "This is Ryan's mom." And
love it.
That was so much fun. And then just meeting you and hearing a little bit about your story, I was like, I have to have you on the show. And I have since met so many women who have been struggling with this heart health issue. So I really thought it was an important topic. But I would love to, before we dive into that, kind of hear your story of where you were in your life at the time before your cardiac arrest and kind of what that whole incident, transpired in your life.
So as you'd mentioned, I did have kind of a background in media sales and print advertising, Easy Reader newspaper, local Peninsula People magazine. And then I worked for a national publication called Kiwi Magazine, which was kind of in the natural mom health space. And I loved that. And then when Ryan, my youngest of 3, graduated and went to college, I said, "Oh, I want to do something different, maybe that's more along the lines of health." And I've been playing beach volleyball and pickleball and kind of doing all the things we do here in the South Bay to stay active and healthy. And I'd torn my meniscus in my knee. I had come across a gal who had a wonderful way. I'd never thought about my weight. And I never thought about diets. I just thought I can eat whatever I want and I'll just exercise it off. And all of a sudden here I tore my meniscus and I was a little bit like, oh, what am I going to do? And I kind of learned that health really starts in the kitchen. And so I ended up with this gal and who was kind of a health coach. And I did this whole kind of process with her, 30 Days to Healthy Living, and I grabbed 9 friends to do it with me. Cool. And it was so successful that I decided that I was going to get my nutritional coaching license and kind of go down that path.
Oh, cool.
And as I did that for a couple of years, I loved it, and I took it as far as I wanted to. And what I realized through that is that I love connecting with the whole person. And when you're talking with people and about kind of their health and their weight, you really kind of get to know the whole person too. And I really realized I love connecting at that heart level. And I thought, okay, I think I'm going to be a life coach. And so then I got my certification in intuitive life coaching, which is heart-centered life coaching. And I'd been doing that for a year and a half, kind of casually, just literally on a referral basis. Then I'm out there playing pickleball one day, and game 3, competitive game in El Segundo, all of a sudden just collapsed. Just kind of went down, like felt faint and just kind of
So there
down.
was nothing that hit you before that. You just kind of started to faint.
I didn't quite faint. I actually just started to feel lightheaded, and I just kind of sat down on the pickleball court, and I said, "Ooh, feeling a little lightheaded. Maybe I need to just get some water and hydrate." Walked over to the bench, guzzled some water, and by then the other gals had kind of come over and were kind of sitting there with me, like, everything okay? And next thing I knew, I just kind of passed out on one of the players.
How scary.
That's the last thing I remember. And then the story goes that I turned gray pretty quickly, and they started, the 3 of them, it took 3 of them to gently lay me down on the ground. Then, of course, one called 911 immediately. They checked for a pulse. There was none.
Oh, my goodness.
And this was at 8 in the morning. And so there weren't very many people playing pickleball at that time. But they did scream. There was another court. 2 gals came over. And one of them, they said, "Does anybody know CPR?" And one of them said, "Gosh, I haven't done CPR in years, but maybe I could try it." So she jumped on me. And then another woman who was an instructor, pickleball instructor, she jumped in and started doing mouth-to-mouth, which was amazing.
Wow.
And then the paramedics came within about 8 minutes. And then they pulled me off to the side, and you took off my clothing and, hooked me up to the electrodes to the AED, which is the automatic external defibrillator. And it took 2 rounds of 200 volts to jumpstart my heart back into a sinus rhythm.
Wow.
My heart stopped for 12 minutes.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Which is pretty wild.
That is wild.
Yeah, so then the ambulance came, and then they took me to the hospital, and my family met them there, my husband and Ryan. And the ER doc looked at my husband and said, "I've got to tell you, this looks really grim." And so then they kind of put me in a hyperbaric chamber to kind of cool my body temperature down for 24 hours. And then I came to, and then they put me back in, and it was all this kind of thing for 48 hours. And then it was the question of, this happened, and she's going to survive, but it's kind of a matter of, is she going to have any anoxic brain injury?
Right. That was what I was going to say. Your heart stopped for 12 minutes. And
12
were
minutes.
you breathing? I mean.
Yes. So that maybe segues into the difference between a heart attack and a cardiac arrest, that maybe many of your listeners may not know the difference. I didn't know the difference.
I certainly did not.
Yeah.
Even when we were communicating about setting up this conversation, I didn't know. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries. So many people can survive heart attacks, but the stats on cardiac arrest are much more serious. So for every 100 people that suffer a cardiac arrest, only 10 people survive. And of the 10, only 1 walks away without some form of brain injury. So that's 1 in 100. That's 1%. So I am in that 1%.
You are in the 1%. I have the chills. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a miracle. And the reason being is that people jumped into action really quickly. And so the gal who came in and did the CPR, and the other one who did the mouth-to-mouth, although my heart had stopped, they kept the blood circulating and oxygenating my brain.
Wow. And they didn't even realize that that was what was going on, but they were saving your life.
They were saving my life.
In that way.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And then my heart got shocked back in, and then jump-started, and then my heart started beating again. And then just to kind of end that little story, so in the hospital, then they said, well, we don't want this to ever happen again. How can we avoid that? So then they put in this they implanted a defibrillator pacemaker.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, they had to shock my heart while I was in the hospital. So they had to run all these tests to make sure that my heart was strong enough to withstand another shock, which is when I learned that, okay, the plumbing of my heart is fine, the arteries, which all of those kinds of things can cause heart attacks. My situation, a cardiac arrest, is an electrical situation.
Okay. So what does that mean exactly?
So that means we have different chambers of our heart. Maybe you've heard of atrial fibrillation or AFib, which
Yeah.
is kind of common as people get older. And that includes the upper chambers of the heart. I suffered a ventricular fibrillation, which is the lower chamber. And when that jumps out of rhythm, your heart stops. With AFib, which is the upper chambers, your heart just kind of can skip beats here and there. And there are tests for that.
Yes.
But the test, which is called an electrocardiogram, which is an EKG, and they put the little electrodes on you, it only tests you for about 10 minutes. And so if your heart is beating fine, you're not going to know it.
Right.
Which is just
So
kind of fascinating.
it can spike at different times, or it can show signs of that AFib without you knowing, because for 10 minutes the heart was beating fine. Okay,
Exactly.
that's so interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, this is insane. I'm learning so much. I feel like I'm in school. Wow.
Well, and it's interesting to note because I had just a month before had a full-on physical, green lights, and an EKG, because I knew that my dad had gone into AFib at age 65, which was just about the age I was. But what I didn't know is, like we just discussed, is the EKG, right? It's only 10 minutes. So had I really advocated for myself, and now after this event I would have, and said, my dad went into this, I'd really like to take the halter home for a couple of days or a week and let's see, and probably something would have shown up.
But how would you have known? Like, I think that's the thing. Until we don't know until we know, right? We don't know to ask. And I think this is why we're having this conversation, is to say, okay, had you had that information in advance, you would have known to ask to take that machine home so that you could really monitor what was going on.
Yes.
Did you have any signs of anything leading up to this point?
Nothing, except my husband reminded me. He said, but this is so common. He said, Victoria, about a week before, you'd walk down the hall to the bathroom, and you said you felt a little faint. And he said, that was just unusual for you. And I said, I know, but sometimes like we sit down or we get up quickly, that happens. So that was the only thing that there was nothing. And they still to this day call it an idiopathic. They don't know why it happened.
That's interesting.
Which is interesting.
Which is really interesting. Okay, because we're talking about this, I'm thinking of all the people who are listening and watching, and they're saying, okay, so how do I prepare if something like this can happen to me? And if you don't have those tests, those longer tests to know, is your heart beating properly?
Yeah.
What are the signs? And you're doing all the things. I mean, you are doing health coaching, and you're eating well, and you've got all of this going for your exercise. Like we hear this more and more, that even the healthiest people can have heart problems, right? And a lot of it is hereditary, as we know, like you said with your father. So it's really for the women listening and anyone listening, what are some of the things that we should be doing to make sure that we're on top of our health, and especially our heart health, when it's so difficult when there's no signs?
Yeah. Well, I'm in my 60s, so I'm also of that generation of the past 20 years where hormone replacement therapy my mom died of ovarian cancer. And so my doctor said, well, you're not going to be a candidate for any kind of hormone replacement therapy. And I thought at the time, no big deal. I breezed through menopause. I didn't really have the symptoms. My attitude was, I can't do anything about it, so I'm just going to sweat my way through it by playing volleyball or doing all the things, right? And that was fine, and it worked great until the situation where I really learned after my cardiac arrest how incredibly powerful estrogen is and what a protector it is for our hearts. Yes. And I didn't know that.
That's such an interesting point, and I'm so glad you brought this up because Olivia's mom, Julie, and I just had this conversation about her. She had breast cancer, and she was one of those, she had to get off all of her hormone replacement because at the time they were still thinking that this was dangerous to cancer patients. And now they're finding that that actually isn't the case, and it's actually better for you to have hormone replacement for all the other health advantages that it has. So I'm glad you bring that up as well.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm so grateful that now for younger women that is okay. I have just learned that since I'm now 10 years beyond, estrogen's not going to be a part of my future. Maybe progesterone, and I'm just starting to dig into and learn a little bit more about that.
Right.
But so I think it's really, really great if women at like age 45 or 50 can go and get some baseline tests.
Absolutely.
I think it's really important. I think knowing our genetic history is really important, and then really advocating for yourself.
Right.
Doing the research and really kind of pushing through, because it's hard now, right? The doctors only have so much time for us, and so you have to really kind of go in and be on a mission and really know your body.
I was just going to say, be connected to what's going on with your body. And if you, I mean, I like to say, ride that fine line between don't be paranoid and live your life like free and clear and enjoy what you love to do. And don't worry every other day, oh my gosh, is this that I'm dizzy mean I'm having a heart attack? Because I get dizzy all the time. Like we all have symptoms of things that could be something.
Yes.
It's not to create fear or paranoia, is to be knowledgeable. It's to connect in with what's going on with you. And like you say, advocating for your health nowadays is so important because we don't have that time with our doctors. I mean, now 90% of us are not even seeing a doctor. We're seeing a nurse practitioner unless we have a specialist that we're going to for something. And so you really do have to educate yourself. And it's about diving into conversations like this and learning something.
Yeah.
And so we'll definitely have all those screenings opportunities, and we'll include all the information that you have in the show notes so women can go and be their own advocate and request these screenings if they feel like, okay, I'm 55 years old. I've never had a heart screening, so it's making me think I should probably do that.
Yeah.
I've just started looking into the hormone stuff and figuring out what's going on with my body outside of me just going, oh, maybe I'm hungry, maybe I'm tired.
Right.
And I've been fortunate that my health has been pretty good up to this point, but we do need to start paying attention and really listening to our history. My mom's side of the family is pretty solid. My mom's 80 something and still walking daily and doing great and healthy and active. My father, on the other hand, passed away at 68 with stomach cancer, had multiple heart attacks, kidney failure, diabetes at 21. Colon cancer at 40,
Wow.
you name it. So we used to joke that he had 9 lives.
Oh my
So I have this side of my family that definitely has those health issues. And I've been getting a colonoscopy since I think I was 30 years old because the doctor was like, oh, your dad had colon cancer at 40, you need to get checked. But we really do. We need to pay attention. Oh, my dad was this age when this happened. So maybe I need to start thinking about asking more questions.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's really the key, is asking questions.
Asking questions, for sure.
Yeah. And just being that
100%.
advocate. So you survived this.
I survived.
And I would love to hear the journey that this incident took you through and how you came out on the other side.
I mean, gosh, I think when I first woke up, I just felt this immense gratitude of like, whoa, when I kind of really learned, like what had happened and I think maybe the stats, it was just tremendous gratitude. And then, Jen, what has really stuck with me is this whole thing about future tripping. We tend to worry about things, and the things that really rock our worlds aren't the things that we worry about. As the saying goes, 90% of what we worry about never comes to pass.
Right.
It's the 10% of what we can't anticipate that really kind of takes us down.
Right.
And so it was that's kind of this mantra that I have of like, why worry? Because I thought I'd maybe get breast cancer, ovarian cancer.
Right.
I thought my heart was like never would
Rock
have to.
solid.
Yeah, rock solid. So that is something that's really kind of carried me through. And then I think it's also like, okay, God, universe, I wish I would have had one of those the near-death experiences where, Somebody said, not your time yet. You got to come back, right? You've
So
got
that
work
didn't
to
happen
do.
for you.
That didn't happen
Okay.
for me. And I would have been so open to that. So I'm so surprised. However, I feel like in a way it did. Clearly, it wasn't my time to go.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, my family's raised, my kids are raised. I'm doing this heart-centered life coaching thing. And why am I still here? What is it that I'm here to do, and how can I serve more and deeper and better? And I think it's, I want to be able to pay it forward. I don't want to be on that volleyball court or on that pickleball court and see someone else drop and not be one that can help.
Right.
I want to be able to step in and be that person and encourage as many people to do that. So I'm really advocating for and arranging CPR classes and AEDs. And the city of El Segundo has been so fabulous. Since my event, they dedicated an AED to me, and they put it on the pickleball court where I fell ill.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
Then they have installed, they'll be up to 20 AEDs in the city of El Segundo by the end of this year in public places. And I'm working with Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach and Redondo Beach to do more of the same.
Incredible.
Which I think is powerful. I had no idea how easy these AEDs are to use. You literally flip on a switch and they walk you through the whole thing.
Wow.
So it's pretty powerful.
And the AEDs are basically just like a jump start. Is that what it is?
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
jump start. Well, it's the electrodes. Exactly.
Okay.
It's a jump start. And there was an AED in the office, in the rec office at the El Segundo courts, but we were playing before hours. The office wasn't open yet, and nobody knew where it was. So it's about just people knowing where they are.
Access. So many things have popped into my head since you have been speaking about turning your pain into purpose. Yeah. And I think that's what usually transpires for many of us who go through something life-changing, life-threatening for you.
Yeah.
And you come out of it and you're like, wow, I was saved for a reason.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
And so now you're turning that into purpose by getting all of these, what are they called again?
AEDs.
Installed in all these on these pickleball courts. And I mean, now that I know about what it is, I'm going to go, when I go to work out somewhere, I'm going to, where's the AED?
Yeah, yoga studios, gyms. Yeah. It's important to have the accessibility all over the place.
100%. And you're not the first story that I've heard in the last couple of years of someone having cardiac arrest and having no one around that knew how to do CPR.
Yeah.
And I think we don't teach that enough anymore. Number one, a gentleman, young guy in his early 40s, had a heart attack on a street at 7:00 at night, coming home from a run. And luckily a neighbor came out and they got him to give him CPR, and he saved his life. They didn't think he was going to make it, and he's now fine.
Oh, it's wonderful.
But so many stories of we should have more access to this equipment to be able to save people, or at least know CPR.
Yeah.
I think when you have a baby, you get trained for like a hot second on how to save your baby's life if they choke or something like that. And then that's about it. We don't get the training unless we go into a lifeguard program or something like that.
Exactly.
So it's really, really important. And you are turning your incident, your life-threatening, life-changing incident into purpose. And so now when you're advocating for women's heart health, and you're out there, are you speaking? Are you, how do you work with people now?
So I'm still coaching, and then I've got this heart now to speak. And so I took I got a whole storytelling certification, which was very cathartic.
Yeah.
I worked with a woman with a coach, and so I'm speaking to different chambers and rotaries and different nonprofit organizations and women's organizations. And I'm connected with Little Company of Mary Hospital. And so really that's kind of my goal for 2026 is to really spread the work that way and just really encourage really encourage women at any age to really, but particularly perimenopausal on up, to really pay attention to that, because it's still the silent killer. It manifests itself very differently for the symptoms, men versus women.
Right.
And whether it's a cardiac arrest or heart attack prone. It's just the heart, and we sometimes kind of take that for granted. So
100%. You just made me think about a book that I started reading that my mom gave me called The XX Brain. I think that's it. And it's Maria Shriver wrote the foreword, but it's from a doctor who studied women's brain health and heart health. And one of the things that she said was that there weren't enough studies done from the 1950s on women and finding out brain health and heart health because of the concern for impacting pregnancies. And so there weren't a lot of health studies done on women up until like the late 1980s. So a lot of women, we didn't have the information that we have now about women's health in general. And because breast cancer became the topic of the last 30, 40 years, heart health kind of got put on the back burner. But heart health, women's heart health, is actually cardiac arrest and heart attacks are the number one killer of women, not breast cancer.
Still the number, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. I mean, breast cancer, of course, a priority, and it can impact anyone. I had a friend pass away at 40 of breast cancer, like way too young. But it doesn't mean that women's heart health shouldn't be at the forefront of the conversation. And so I'm so glad that you're out there advocating and speaking. I just think that this is how we get the word out. Conversations like this on podcasts, you should be having these conversations on lots of shows. And I'm going to introduce you because I just think that this isn't a topic that really is brought up a lot. I had Rachel McCord on my show. She is a media entrepreneur. She has a podcast called The McCord List Today Show. She was an actress, model, all the things, and has run tons of businesses. She had cardiac arrest. She actually had a life-threatening heart surgery, and she's only like late 30s. Wow. And so she's a big women's heart health advocate as well. And I just had her on her show and she told her story, but it's a little different because hers was more surgery oriented.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm going to put the two of you together because I think she's someone that you really should connect with because she's like screaming from the rooftops about this topic. And I think you have so much education and everything, wisdom that you've gone through that you could really, collaborate with her on a lot of things. There's so many people that I'm thinking of as we're having this conversation. But so if everybody who's listening wants to learn more, how do they find you?
They can follow me on Instagram at A Little Lucy Love.
A Little Lucy Love.
A Little Lucy Love. That's my middle name.
Okay, love
is
it.
Lucy. And I'm on LinkedIn under Victoria Gustafson. And they can find me via my email, victorialg@icloud.com.
Okay. So just so that if there's someone who's like, I have a question, I'm curious about what happened when this, they can reach out to you on Instagram or your email or LinkedIn or whatever and just kind of start to follow, the path of going down and looking at these screenings and all the things that they need to do, but also where they can find you as far as if you're going to be speaking and things like that. I know people will be interested in finding that out. So as soon as you have that information posted, we'll be sure to share that information too. So I am just so grateful for you being here. And this has been such an education for me. And I hope all of the listeners really got something out of this. Ladies, we need to pay attention to our health. I'm doing it more and more. And it is certainly going to help us with longevity and being able to play pickleball into our 70s, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for joining us and listening and watching every single episode. Don't forget to click and subscribe and download so you don't miss an episode. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this episode beneficial. And if you feel compelled to do so, share it with a friend who might benefit too. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Reach out to me anytime on my website at jenmentasana.com.